Well, we wouldn't get very far here, would we? Without women to actually wear what we make. I mean, we're not degrading them anyway.
It creates unrealistic standards that real women can't live up to.
Oh, come on, you know we use all types of models, all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with it.
Well, your Rosie makes good money modelling, don't she?
Yeah, well, that's not the point.
You peed on your cornflakes this morning.
I did. Rather nicely.
Tim, I'm working.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 215 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that doesn't think anyone could have guessed that the main talking point of an episode that had a heist plot in it would have been a middle-aged woman in a pink lobster pashmina over leopard print. I'm Gavin.
And I am sorry, Pete Davidson. I know you like MILFs, but I am strictly a one-woman man. Wait, I'm not a one-woman man.
Is there something you're not telling me? Because I don't think this is the platform to reveal anything like that. And I would have thought I would have noticed.
What would have hoped that you would have noticed?
Join us next week.
I'm powering through a migraine, so that came out wrong.
That's what she said. Or he said. Anyway, how are you?
Anyway, well, I have a migraine.
Good start.
High pollen count today, just killing my brain. So I was up early, and I came to bed late because I'm powering through The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I'm surprised I didn't start watching before now, but whatever. And yeah, because I'm getting very low on my filmography stuff. It's becoming harder and harder to find things, even without the whole HBO Max debacle, which we will not get into here. So it's been a week. I've been really busy with Stella because she had band camp this week, and every day at band camp there's like a theme, a competition into a theme. So there was a decades day, and they had picked the 60s. So I was able to dress her up like a hippie. And yesterday was Pirate Day, so she stole your ghillie shirt and put on a bandana and a belt.
If I'm being entirely honest with you, when I asked you how you were, I was expecting you to talk about your birthday.
Oh, yeah, that happened too. But it was so long ago, when so much has happened since then.
Because it was better than migraines and pollen counts. I'm not going to lie.
It was better than that. We went to Canada. We went to Point Pelee National Park in Canada. We walked all the way down to the point, the southernmost point in continental Canada.
Have you been there, Canadians?
Have you?
Because we have.
We have. Stella got to go to Canada for the first time ever.
Yeah, a little bit of fun and that how we got her in because she doesn't have a passport, so we got her in through our birth certificate.
Right.
And then we were coming back the next day because she had the band thing, so we only really spent 24 hours in Canada. Probably a little bit less than that, actually.
Which was fine.
I handed over my passport card. It's kind of like a credit card sized ID thing. You had
And
your
my
actual
passport.
physical passport. And a folded up piece of paper that we thought was our birth certificate.
And it was not.
And the immigration guy says, "What's this?" But you said it's our birth certificate. And so he just handed everything back and said, "Go on your way." And it wasn't until we were a few miles into the US that you noticed that it wasn't our birth certificate at all.
No.
It was a receipt from
my
doctor's,
oral
was it?
surgeon.
So it wasn't even hers.
No, it was from Dr. Charcot.
So it might as well have been a receipt for an oil change then.
Yes.
That's what you
If
need to get into the
consider
US.
my mouth an engine. Well, it does help provide energy to my body, much the way an engine does for a car.
Not much of a way of identifying who the person was in the back seat of our car.
No.
Oh well.
No. Considering we've smuggled our dog into Canada a couple of times.
And we got the haggis out.
And smuggled haggis out of Canada a couple of times.
What are the chances in a random town that we stop in? Essex, I think it was.
Yes, we stopped in Essex and they had a Blimey's.
There's a Blimey's.ca, which is if you haven't figured it out, a British grocer and
in Canada.
Haberdasher, I'm going to say. And
I didn't see very many hats there.
tons.
Were there hats?
There was plenty of hats.
Surprised Ellie didn't want a hat.
And she did. And there was such a good selection of food stuff, so we got stocked up.
Yes. Yeah, I have been very bad this week as far as my diabetes is concerned. And I'm lucky I haven't died.
Well, let's power through this then one more time before you do, shall we?
Yes, please.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
How was your week?
Oh, it's too late. Shall we
You had
preamble?
a delightful time in Canada.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that Corrie news. Did I miss an adjective?
Some of that blimey Corrie news.
That'll do. There we go.
Rumor has it, Millie Gibson is also leaving the show. And while I totally get it and wish her well with a minimum of traumatic roles in her future, I'm a little tired of all of my favorite people leaving the show.
Well, the way that the show's kind of placed at the moment, and we'll talk about this in some detail, I think, in the coming hour or so.
Yes.
It doesn't look good for Ryan at
No.
the minute.
No.
Doesn't really look that great for Debbie neither at the
No.
minute. Doesn't look great for Homeless Stu at the minute.
No. And now Jenny might be moving to Canada, speaking of Canada. with lovely Leo.
Now, is this source for Millie Gibson the same source about Charlie? Because I don't think she said anything about it.
No, it's just like with Charlie, where the show has not officially come out and said that she's leaving,
But everywhere.
but everywhere else is confirming that she's leaving. Mm-hmm. So it feels like a done deal.
Sucks for Coronation Street. A real
Sucks
talent. A real young
for Coronation
talent.
Street.
But
Maybe if the show had stopped, I don't know, throwing her into dungeons and having her assaulted and getting her high on drugs and killing her parents constantly.
did she kill her parents?
No, the show killed her parents.
Oh, the show did, right?
Yes.
I don't know. As an actor, maybe you're quite happy about that because it means that you're on screen.
Well, yeah, but I think there comes a point, and there was a really good article out about how playing a character that's just constantly being put in trauma.
Claire Lindsay in the Metro.
Yes, an excellent article.
It was a good article.
There comes a point where it starts affecting you negatively, and we've even seen actors in movies be affected in this way, where they're playing a character who's very dark or goes through extreme traumatic experiences, and it can trigger something in their memory and cause them mental distress. So, and I mean, I guess it's part of the job, but you would think, especially in a show like this, that they'd throw her a bone a little bit more frequently. Yeah.
Anyway. Sucks.
Sucks for us.
But well done, Millie.
Yes.
Moving on to bigger and better things.
Absolutely.
I think.
At least we now get Jodie Prenger, who debuted this week as Glenda,
Wow.
the sister of The Undertaker.
Wow.
The Undertaker's sister.
And what a debut.
What a debut. You will be hearing us raving, not ranting, but raving about it later. Jodie, pre-pandemic, played Helen in the National Theatre's production of A Taste of Honey. So, of course, I love her.
What, because you played somebody who has your name?
Yes. And finally, two familiar faces from the Cobbles will compete. Two will compete in Strictly this season.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Two faces that are not currently on the Cobbles, but they both were on the Cobbles.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. We will see Will Malore and
Mellor.
and Kim Marsh join the show. Yeah, I really should do that better because I've spent most of yesterday explaining to Americans that it's pronounced Constantine, not Constantine, but for a completely different show. Anyway, Malore is a favorite to win. Mellor
There you go.
is a favorite to win. It's
Rhymes with smeller.
It's my accent. Mellor is because that just feels weird in my mouth. Mellor.
There you go.
Mellor. British people mispronounce American names all the time.
Yeah, and you correct them, so I'm returning the
They
favour.
don't hear me though. Anyway, Mellor. is a
You
favorite.
can just say like Mellow. There you go. You don't have to sound like a robot.
Yes, I do. Anyway, Will is a favorite to win according to local bookies.
Too early to tell who's going to win that.
Yeah.
You need to see them in the first week.
Right. He does. I mean, he does look like he can lift someone. And I think that's a big part of it.
I reckon he can do Latin fine. I'm just have a question marks over his ballroom. I don't know what I mean by that.
Dear God. And that's Corrie News.
Quick mailbag. Chloe from Nova Scotia got in touch. I'm a bit behind with the show and the podcast. Sorry to hear that your plans for YouTube monetization fell apart. Maybe you could pick up a sponsorship from Manscaped, who I'm sure are actively sponsoring podcasts about vaginas at this point. Thank you, Chloe.
Yes. And in fact, Manscaped did approach us at one point, and Gav did not feel comfortable talking about his balls.
I just don't think anybody wants to hear people talk about shaving their balls on podcasts. I really don't.
I love it. Quite a few of the podcasts that I listen to, the majority of which are hosted by gay men, talk about it all the time, are sponsored by Manscaped.
But they would talk about it even if they weren't sponsored by Manscaped.
Well, yes, because I know way more about douching than I ever thought that I ever would. But anyway, it would sound lovely hearing someone with your beautiful dulcet accent talking about their balls.
Well,
I think Americans would like it.
Judging by the start of the show, you could have read it out. And now we'll podcast for coffee. Thanks to Canadian Helen for her coffees this week.
Thank you.
Here's some coffee money, she says, to enjoy some Tim Hortons coffee on your trip to Canada. We didn't do any Tim Hortons.
We didn't. We did have some lovely Canadian coffee, though, at a little diner where I had a chicken burger and Stelly had poutine. And what did you have?
I had their breakfast.
Oh, you had the breakfast
that
with
had the
the
British bangers in
sausage.
it.
Yeah.
This was also in Essex. This was actually across the street from
Blimey's.
From Blimey's.
That's how we found Blimey's, is because we parked there to go to the restaurant, and then we're like, oh, Blimey, it's a Blimey's.
Yep. And
That's
that's how that happened. You certainly paint a visual picture.
yes.
If you want, what you're drinking? Oh, you're drinking out your Pam mug.
Yeah, it's one of my dad's ex's mugs
That we've spoken
Pam.
about several times.
from Massachusetts.
I'm drinking my best fucking husband ever mug. Thank you for buying us
It's true.
for buying us our coffees this week, Canadian Helen. If you want to buy us next week's coffee, you can go to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/The Talk of the Street if you think this is worth any more than the time it takes to listen to it.
Yes.
And now this.
Oh, welcome.
Well, welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about Emily Brontosaurus.
That is that Hope stuffy or is that Ruby stuffy? It's one of the two of them.
That's right, this was Hope giving away her very special toy for Alina's unborn baby.
Yes, that she would later murder.
I was Gavin, and you have the best husband ever. After your birthday weekend away, we hung out in Manistee and bought steaks from the mafia and saw a seagull killed by a bridge. And I think we talked about all of this last week, apart from the seagull being killed by a bridge.
Yeah, I forgot all about the seagull crushed by that bridge. Crushed, I say.
Such a lazy, lazy seagull. Just sitting there, this, I guess, what would you call it? A swing bridge?
It's
Drawbridge.
Drawbridge, yes.
The drawbridge mechanism ate a seagull.
Yes, because the seagull was too slower than a drawbridge mechanism.
Yeah. I feel like we talked about that quite a bit last week. The mafia stuff and all that.
Yeah.
It's good fun.
This time around, we just saw like 3 or 4 dead fish on the walk to the point.
Oh, I didn't see any.
I took a picture of one of them.
Nice.
Because I took a picture of a dead fish last year as well that we saw along the shore of Lake Michigan. It's becoming a common theme for my birthday to take a picture of a dead fish. I didn't even talk about the cool stuff that we got at the antique store this year.
Oh well.
And we had that power outage. Remember that? We couldn't flush the toilet.
We talked about that last week,
Yes.
I think. The aftermath of Todd's chicanery leaves them with few options on places to live until a friendly undertaker comes to his rescue. Craig's lacklustre report on the Baileys incident encourages many quarters to draw a line under the incident, but James is not prepared to let it lie. As he becomes increasingly suspicious that her work and situation are not being taken seriously by the others at the Knicker Factory, that was the little time that we got a bit of Izzy during the whole pandemic thing via somebody's phone, I think, wasn't it, or iPad?
Right, yeah, or laptop.
Addy takes relationship advice from Amy, which leads Tracy and Steve to jump to the wrong conclusions.
Of course.
Following a meeting with her witness liaison officer, Nina is inspired towards a horticultural memorial for Seb. Oh my God, that was awful.
Horticultural memorial.
Constantly let down by Tyrone, and Alina Hope resorts to drastic measures to get his attention and her toy dinosaur back. Helena's feet get dangerously close to the biscuits. Remember Helena?
Yes, she was awesome.
Helena and the fish guy and Shade Girl. Where are you?
Just bring Helena back.
The corner shop is overstocked in prophylactics, and Phil lives in speed dial. Our moment of the week was Izzy recounting her lockdown experience.
Phil.
And her boring moment of the week was Mary going on about flowers again.
Remember Phil?
I do. And that was Coronation Street. And the talk of the street, this time last year.
Bring back Phil.
He's barely gone.
I know. Bring him back.
He is gone, though.
I know, it sucks.
Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that. Oh, no, I've done that.
No, we did that already.
Our first storyline this morning is our last storyline this morning. So our first storyline this morning is Wendy Flamin Papadopoulos Crozier. But first, it's time for a hard debate.
We're starting out with this.
Well, there's no real place to put it. It was one of those that doesn't really... It's an orphaned hard debate. It doesn't belong to a story. What is your favourite corrie ident going in and out of the commercial breaks? Is it the heated pie, the red onion, the strutting rooftop pigeon, or the taxi going round the corner?
You left out
I know, I
the
can't
lock.
believe...
I can't believe you left out the lock.
Considering we were
Considering
sponsored
we
by
were
Squire for a
sponsored by
whole
them.
month.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
We got 250 quid out of that.
Yes, we did.
By me writing to Squire and saying, there's a Squire lock on your ident. My papa used to have a Squire lock. I think it's the same one. Do you want to sponsor us? And they came back and said, yeah, sure. That's how this works, apparently.
It's a wonder we haven't tried that again with someone else.
I'm just scared in case it doesn't happen, and then it just blows all my preconceptions.
You know what
about the
they
whole
say,
thing.
Broom? You miss all the balls you don't try.
I don't think that's what they say.
They say
I
it
think
in baseball.
Manscaped say that, but I don't think they say that.
They say it in baseball. Maybe.
I think you're looking for you miss all the shots you don't take,
Right.
not balls.
Right. But I mean like batting, you know.
I'm sure that's what you mean.
That is what I mean.
So the voting was us. How did you vote? Did you vote?
Well, first I complained that the lock wasn't there.
Right.
And then I voted red onion.
And the voting was the taxi going round the corner, 8.5%. You don't see that one very much anymore.
No.
The heated pie.
Which again is why I'm surprised you included it and not the lock.
Well, but didn't jump into my mind. I'm sorry.
You should be.
Heated pie was 12.7%. I quite like that one. Red onion, 21.1%. But by far the winner was that strutting rooftop pigeon with 57.7% of the vote.
Pigeons are lovely.
That's quite a popular vote, that one. I don't know why. Anyway, on Monday with the Wendy Flamin Papadopoulos Crozier. On Monday, Jack is like a half-shut knife after a sleepless night thanks to Alfie. Kev says it goes on for 2 years or so. Fucking hell, says Jack. Abby looks to cheer him up by suggesting that they all head to the park later with Wendy Flamin Crozier. Except you, Kev, you stay put.
You gotta work.
So Jack gets to push Alfie in his pram across the cobbles. He's got this big smile on his face as
he murders the baby with, shaken baby syndrome.
The pram is a blur as it vibrates its way over those cobbles. Whiplash and PTSD, I think. As Abby and Wendy walk by number one, Wendy shares a bit of a look with Ken, who's on his way out with Peter. Bitches be crazy, warns Peter.
Does he?
Yeah, he warns her off. Warns him off.
Does he?
Yeah. Men and women can't be friends. Dad, says Peter.
Yes, played by Billy Crystal.
So Jack gets to push Alfie. No, I've just said that. On the way back, Ken officially jumps Wendy and invites her around
But not like that.
And invites her for a coffee and a number one at number one.
But not like that.
Tracy won't be there. Abby is practically giddy as she encourages Wendy to go. So Wendy does go and enjoy a cup of coffee and a number one, and they compare battle scars about Deirdre and Pathos, or whatever his name was, and they discuss their loneliness. Ken decides to lighten the mood by offering to microwave a lasagna for dinner.
Isn't it Stavros?
I
Or
don't
am I
know.
just throwing Greek names out of a hat?
I've gone for one of the Three Musketeers, so at least I haven't gone down that Greek stereotype route.
No, you gave a Greek man a Spanish name.
And it sounds a little bit like Paphos, which is the place in
That reminds me,
Cyprus.
have you heard that James Franco is going to play Fidel Castro in a movie?
It had to happen sooner or later. They say that you play Fidel Castro twice in your career, once on the way up. Their chat continues to go well, and they tentatively discover that they've both never remarried. She heads off, and they make arrangements to do this again. Ken, you old fucking shagger, you. Wendy heads straight back to Abby's to have a quick post-mortem, and she says although there was no shagging, she hopes to do it again, and she hopes to come round and see Abby and the kid again. Abby hopes that she does come back to visit.
The kid.
Even if it is just to get her fingers and tops off of Ken. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yeah. So this one time you were right about maybe Wendy and Ken hooking up again.
Yeah, I was disappointed that Wendy seemed to be in and out of the show. It seemed much like Spider. It seemed ridiculous to bring this legacy
I don't
character
think we've
back.
seen the last of Spider.
No, I don't think so either. You bring a legacy character back for like 2 scenes and then they go away. It didn't seem to make sense. And it seemed to make sense that the only storyline she could possibly be there for would be a Ken storyline. And the only possible Ken storyline it could be would be something with a little romance attached to it. I don't know if Ken, at this stage in Coronation Street's history, really is in the market for another relationship like this. But Wendy seems to be quite a
I don't
fun
know.
character.
We really like
full
him.
of spunk.
We quite liked him with Claudia.
So do you see a relationship forming between Wendy Flamin Crozier and Ken? And can my voice go any higher than that?
Certainly feels like they're setting that up, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, with the show hemorrhaging younger people, who else is left to have a relationship, a new relationship?
I tell you who's not going to enjoy this.
Tracy.
Tracy is going to
And
go
that's gonna be
through the roof.
And that's going to be fun. Mm-hmm. We're going to have like Tracy back. And that's good.
I mean, after all this time, we keep on cutting to the little shots of the Deirdre photograph on the sideboard, and he keeps on saying, what was it, the line? It's M&S, fish and chips, and Ken and Deirdre.
Yeah.
The 3 constants in life, or something along those lines.
Right.
And he says it back to the picture of Deirdre afterwards.
Yeah.
And she's kind of smiling back, because she's always smiling back.
Because it's a picture.
Because it's a picture to make it look like, well, this is something that Deirdre would approve of.
And who knows, she might. She probably looking down from,
Or up from.
saying, why the hell didn't he get remarried at some point? Mm-hmm. I think it's been long enough.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Moving on then, our next storyline this morning is Tim's Boaby.
Again.
For the 9th week.
It feels like this is the end, though. It feels like we've reached the end game when it comes to Tim's Boaby.
The end of Tim's Boaby. The bell
Just-
end of Tim's Boaby.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
We made that joke several times in front of our 13-year-old daughter as we went to the southernmost tip of Canada.
Yes.
Just the tip.
We're just walking to the tip.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
She seemed oblivious.
I
Let's hope she was. On Monday, it's casino night and Tim and Sally are getting excited. Tim telling Sally that she might be able to rip his tux off at the end of the night.
Oh.
Faye arranges a home video yoga session later with Sally because it seems to help with her symptoms of the menopause. 'Cause
Right.
remember, she's got that going on.
Right.
So later, Faye and Sally chat about the menopause as they do their little yoga stretches and things. Sally tells Faye to not rule out the HRT, but Faye is very resistant to putting chemicals in her body, even though
There
apparently
are chemicals already in your body, Faye. Your body is made of chemicals. Everything around you is made of chemicals. The world is made of chemicals. Lighten up.
I think I've just spotted Helen's trigger. But it's plant-based mostly these days, apparently.
Yeah.
The HRT.
And Faye never really seemed to me the type of person who would be, oh no, I want to do all natural
No.
and chemicals. And let's not forget Sinead, whose death came quicker because she didn't want to take chemicals
Right.
into her body, even though her body is already made of chemicals, blah, 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 blah.
But if...
Does
now-
nobody
now
on the show remember anything?
Remember the reason why she did that? She did that so that Auntie Beth would have a child to look after she was gone.
Ay.
And I guess Faye's moodiness now seems consistent with Faye's moodiness prior
Before,
to all this.
yeah.
Right?
Now it's just she has an excuse.
Because she's resistant to Sally's suggestion to the point of being rude about it,
Yeah.
I felt.
Yeah, well, that's just her character, isn't it?
Tim's all dressed to the nines later. Sally's been doing some research in HRT on Tim's laptop. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
And she has a look on his browser history. She discovers all those tame porn websites that Tim's been looking at.
Right.
And Tim makes that face.
Because Tim didn't switch to incognito mode on his laptop before he did those searches.
Because she warned him that she was about to do this. She said,
Right.
I'm about to look at your internet search history. And he
Right.
was like, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Because he
Doesn't
obviously
even think
does-
about it.
Right.
Just totally clueless. And also, maybe he just doesn't care because really, is porn that big of a deal?
Well, I think it depends on the type of porn that he's looking at. But this was all
This
very
is all
much
fairly
safe, right?
tame, straight up and down stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what the butler saw kind of thing. I'm getting the...
Yeah, because it
that's
was like,
kind of the image that I'm getting from this.
because wasn't his like search something like regular sex or something?
Yeah, dull sex, I think is what he that's what he searched for.
If for some reason I was using your laptop and I noticed that you had been to a porn website at some point in the recent history, I would not care.
For like yesterday or something. I haven't.
No, but I would not care because occasionally I visit porn websites. Everybody does. Anyone who says they've never been to a porn website or never looked at porn on the internet and they're over the age of 11, they're lying.
Shockingly young.
They're lying. And yes, people between the ages of 11 and 15 should not be seeing that stuff because it gives them their prefrontal lobes are not formed correctly yet. They're still processing life, and so they make the assumption that that's what sex is really like. And we all know porn is not what sex is really like.
See, I don't think that Sally would have a problem with this under normal circumstances. But I think given the circumstance that she finds herself in, I think and because he's either hiding it or not talking to her about it, I think she feels a bit let down.
Still, she seems very sanctimonious about it.
He says he's been testing his Boaby out, and it still works. Yay. And this upsets Sally, who thinks that he needs to see nutty women having boring sex to get a stoner. She tells him to go to the casino night. She won't be coming, and she won't be going to the casino night either.
Ha zing!
That's this week's joke.
I think I kind of wish that he had been a little bit more adventurous in his explorations because then he could say to her, I was looking for new things that we might try that might work.
Oh, yeah. Educational.
Right. It was an educational porn search.
Does that work?
It's like saying that you have a subscription to Playboy for the articles.
So at the casino night, Dev has to talk Tim down and tell him not to worry. Sally just wanted to be left alone, so leave her alone.
Right.
Tim finds
Well done, Dev.
Tim finds a muddled middle ground and gets Faye to go round to check. So Faye goes round and Sally just pretends to be tired. Faye reveals that Craig needs his space, so that's why she's wanting to leave him alone. Things have changed between them, and he sees her differently now, she thinks.
And that's probably true.
Trouble in paradise.
Thank God.
It's late when Tim gets home. He finds a note from Sally telling him to be quiet and informing him that the spare room has been made up for him. Oh, pig's tits, says Tim. On Wednesday, Tim wakes up from the couch as Sally storms out of the house without saying good morning or goodbye. Pure Tim. At the factory, Sally remains in a bad mood, and it only gets worse when Carla tells her how much Tim won at the casino night, because apparently he got pretty lucky.
Weren't they not gambling?
Right, they weren't gambling for
Money.
But whoever had the most chips at the end of the night won a prize.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how they got round the UK's licensing laws on gambling. Faye asks Sally if there's something up between her and her dad, but sarcastically Sally says, "Oh no, I'm sure Tim is fine."
Faye's dad,
Yeah.
not Sally's dad.
He did.
Yes.
So Faye meets Tim outside Nina's Rolls.
You had to think about that for a second.
Is he dead? Of course he's dead. And asks him what he's done to upset Sally. He says nothing, but Faye tells him to sort it pronto. Back in the factory, Sally suddenly has puritanical views of underwear, thinking that it's demeaning to women. This is where it kind of got a little bit ridiculous.
Right, yeah.
Carol's just looking at their stock,
Right.
basically.
And in fairness to Sally, the picture is of a very well-endowed woman.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, she
I didn't notice.
She had big boobies, and the bra she was wearing was like a nude color. So it, at first glance, you might think that she was completely naked and just had her nipples removed.
Ah. Oh. Yikes. "Who peed on your cornflakes?" asks Carla. "I did," says Tim, with flowers, who doesn't work at the factory. Sally tries to usher him away, but Carla gives her the day off because everyone's sick of the sight of Sally today. Back home, Sally's upset about the casino night and Tim's porn. Tim thinks this is happening to him, it's his problem, and it has nothing to do with her. Sally says she has never felt so lonely, and maybe they need some time apart. Tim panics and suggests a holiday, telling her that he loves her and begging her not to give up on them. "You like Spain, don't we? Let's go to Spain." In the community garden, Tim talks to Aggie. He explains his problems in the boudoir in fairly vague terms, saying it hasn't been the same since his heart operation. She thinks it's a mental block, and she challenges him to think about how he feels when he's about to get his hole, and he reveals that he thinks that he's going to die. "Bingo," says Aggie, and Tim rushes home to tell Sally.
Wouldn't you have hoped, or have at least thought, that either Dr. Gaddis or the sex therapist,
Or Sally, or Tim himself.
Not necessarily Sally and Tim, because they're not in the medical profession, but one of those people in the medical profession who and especially the sex therapist who specifically deals with these sorts of things, would have asked this question before now.
Right.
One would have hoped that it wouldn't take Aggie.
In the community garden.
And yet, Aggie is the new Abby.
He tells her that he's had an epiphany, and the sight of her hoo-ha makes him worry that he's going to die. Now we know what it is, we can fix the problem, although I'm not sure how. He also doesn't tell her that he's been speaking with Aggie.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand this.
Sally smiles that she's got her old Tim back, but is worried that her floof now reminds him of death. And on Friday, Tim and Sally have gotten their hole, finally. Tim is so chuffed with himself, he's wearing a pink dressing gown and brown workman's boots. The mind boggles. Aggie and Tim meet in the community garden again. She has a book about death for him that she thinks will help with his neuroses. So the two of them take a seat to get some book reading done. And then back home, Tim's still reading.
Because they're friends now.
Yeah. Back home, Tim's still reading his book about death, and he lies to Sally when she comes home, saying that he picked it up from a little free library type thing. All of this is turning Sally on good style. She is so proud of her Timbo.
Yeah. I can kind of understand him lying about how he figured out the whole death thing.
Why are you talking to her instead of talking to me?
Why are you talking to her about this? But the book thing is weird because that, it's okay for him to be friends with Aggie, contrary to what Peter said.
Right.
Because men and women can be friends.
Yes, it can.
Yes. So it's ridiculous that he didn't say, "Oh yeah, Aggie lent it to me," because she thought it would help. Because Aggie and I are friends now.
Well, Sally knows that because they've been friends since the heart thing.
Right.
But Sally did have a problem with him telling Aggie about his heart problems.
Right, even though she's a nurse. And in this world, there are two kinds of nurses. The ones who everybody...
Dirty nurses?
Huh?
Dirty nurses?
No. Now we all know what kind of porn Gav searches for. No, the nurses that are constantly bombarded by questions from people about every little mole. And then the nurses who tell everyone every little thing about their medical condition unasked all the time. And then remind people constantly that they're a nurse.
Oh, your sister. So do you think there's going to be a relationship between Tim and Aggie?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think they're setting it up to make us think that.
Right. And setting it up for Sally to think that.
Right.
I don't think Ed would ever think that.
I don't think Aggie would even remotely consider
No.
cheating on Ed?
No. I mean, we already had that thing about how her and Ronnie hooked up, but that was before she even got together with Ed.
Yeah, that would be a huge character shift,
Yeah.
which
Does happen.
isn't impossible. No, let's just have them being friends. I think
Yeah.
that works perfectly well, the two of them
It's
just
fine.
being friends with each other.
It's fine, regardless of what Peter says. And Peter should talk because he's just talking to his friend Abby. And yes, they hooked up once, but they're not hooking up now. They're both happily married-ish, and they're still friends. So Peter needs to shut his butthole,
and let's,
which is his face.
and let's face it, as soon as this whole, not Peter's butthole, but with this whole
I don't know why I said butthole.
Tim's Boaby goes away, Tim's never speaking to Aggie again. Or we're never going to see it.
Right. They'll still be friends.
That's there to service the plot.
Right, yeah.
All right, moving on. Just another quick one. Summer of Love this week. On Monday, Summer, an official adult now, I think. Is she? I think she is. She tries to
Has
get
she graduated
graduated what?
school?
Yeah.
Is she no longer in school?
No.
There was like no fanfare made of that at all. Isn't leaving school important?
Not really.
There's not like a big, huge graduation party and open house and all that stuff.
No.
You just
Stop going to school.
You're just done?
Mm-hmm.
No cap and gown?
No. I left school officially on a Tuesday morning, I think. Just went and said, yeah, I'm leaving.
So you must find our graduation ceremonies and stuff
Stupid and pointless, yes.
very weird.
Yeah. She tries to get Billy to write a note so she can get out of going to work. Fuck that, says Billy. So Summer goes to get ready, allowing Billy and Todd, because Todd's there, to talk about how miserable she seems. I'm not sure how to tell.
She asked him to write her a note.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny.
Todd might have an idea how to fix this. So he goes to the garage to have it out with Aaron, who is at least a foot taller than him.
And younger. And more fit.
Aaron rips the rug away from under Todd by explaining that he wants to take things slowly with Summer, although we were led to believe last week that he'd split up from her, and he doesn't want to rush her into anything. Yeah, well...
Well, that's why he split up with her, because he wanted to take things slowly, and it didn't seem like it was going slowly.
Yeah, well, says Todd, you should do something about her being mopey then. So that gives Aaron some food for thought.
Right, yeah, because apparently now Aaron is responsible for Summer's
Yeah.
well-being. Summer is never responsible for her own well-being, and that's why she is what she is today.
Well, let's face it, she doesn't do a very good job of it. So Aaron goes to see Summer at home. He doesn't want to break up now that Todd has bullied him into it. It seems that Aaron's answer to everything is buying holidays, and he's bought them another holiday, this time to Edinburgh for the festival. Summer is thrilled. She's always wanted to go to the festival. It's
Festival?
It's like
The King's Festival?
250 miles away.
Sorry, I'm quoting musicals at you, and it's just going right over your head.
Summer is thrilled, thinking that the festival is full of plays and physical theatre, and not guys with more money than sense doing 30 minutes of unrehearsed stand-up in the storeroom of a pub for free. They winch, and they're about to get their hole on the couch when Billy comes in from his thing at the church. Nice church thing? Asks Aaron, and Billy doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because I was really confused when she started talking about, the Edinburgh Festival.
She doesn't know what it is.
This classy theater thing. I was like, that's not what I was led to believe the Edinburgh Festival is.
Well, there's the international festival,
right,
and then there's the much larger Edinburgh Fringe Festival,
right,
and that's what people talk about when they talk about going to Edinburgh in August for the festival.
Right.
They're not talking about the international festival, although it kind of sounds a little bit like she is. Everyone else is talking about the Fringe Festival,
right, Fringe, and even the international bit. I mean, it's more like avant-garde theater and weird stuff, right? It's not really Shakespeare and
it can be.
Yeah, but it's weird Shakespeare. It's fun Shakespeare.
I don't know. I've never been to the regular festival.
Oh, you've only been to the
Always
Fringe.
been to the Fringe. That's why people go.
We should go sometime.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. So
all festivals are nightmares.
So Billy seems to want to sit with them for hours, but finally goes to bed. And this allows Summer to tell Aaron that she thinks that actually she'd prefer to go to Barcelona. Fucking hell, entitled or what?
What the hell is wrong with her? Oh, and she wants to go to Barcelona because she thinks he'd rather go to Barcelona. And it's like, he's the one who bought this whole Edinburgh thing.
And remember, he's cancelled Barcelona.
Right.
So now he has to buy it again. Where's he getting all this money for
And
multiple and repetitive
Kev
holidays?
is not paying him that much, let's be honest. And also, once they got to Edinburgh, they'd realize that the majority of the festival is stuff that he would enjoy.
Yeah.
It's not as highbrow as Summer seems to think it is.
No. Nobody goes to that. And by the way,
Somebody must go to that, or else they wouldn't keep doing it.
7 people go to that. 100,000 people go to something else. So yeah, she wants to go to Barcelona again. She wants to push herself. Aaron relents, but will only do
Into
that
Aaron.
if Summer speaks to someone about her body issues. And Summer agrees, but then looks like she's about to scoosh her insulin down the sink again. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
So, same old shit, different day, yes?
Yep. Although they have had a somewhat intimate moment together on the couch.
Yes. And it would have gone further if Billy hadn't walked in,
Yeah.
which means they should have gone to her bedroom.
Yeah, you'd have thought, right?
Because these 3 adult gay men are constantly walking in unannounced to that apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So someone should
And
be well aware.
That's fine for Billy to do that.
Right, because he lives there.
Right.
Is it okay for Paul and Todd
No.
to alternate 1 week it's Paul and 1 week it's Todd?
I posted something on Twitter this week about seeing Todd at Eileen's going, what's Todd doing at Eileen's? And then remembering that,
That he lives there.
He doesn't live at Billy's.
No.
Yeah. Stop getting the Edinburgh Fringe Festival wrong. Thank you. And this is...
Just...
I mean, we've come to the end of Tim's Boaby,
Let's-
so to speak.
Let's be honest, though. How often do predominantly English shows get Scotland right?
Well, it's just Scotland, isn't it? I'm surprised that it's not the Scotland Festival that she's going to. Moving on to, I think, the highlight of the week. There's no place like Glenda.
Ah, yes. Ah,
On Monday, Sean is handling an impressive piece of pork.
and I like that.
It's a special meal for Dylan after the whole Frank thing. If there's one thing that kids these days love, it's a bit of roast pork. So with a bit of help from Eileen, the meal is ready just as Sean gets a text from Dylan telling him that he'll be having pizza with Max and David, who apparently he's friends with now. So they settle down to a very dry piece of pork that George manages to break a tooth on the crackling on. When Dylan finally gets home with some pizza remnants, he says saws a lot about missing the special tea, and Sean tells him that he had a lucky escape. So on Wednesday, George is still having dental issues, but he's meeting Mrs. Pugh for Mr. Pugh's funeral. The two of them were friends with his dad, so she'll be getting the VIP treatment.
And this is not Mrs. Pugh from Annie. Every time they mention Mrs. Pugh's name, in my head I'm thinking, when you're through, Mrs. Pugh will come to take your tray away.
Whereas I'm thinking of the fireman from Trumpton, or Campbellwick Green. Pugh, Drew, Barney McGrew, Cuthbert, Dibble and Grubb. The Undertaker, a shifty man, wants to talk about Georgie's premiere service. Georgie's
I'm not
eyes
like that.
turn to dollar signs as he ushers the fellow in. The fellow also has oil of clothes to help with his toothache. But next we see George kicks the guy out. He's actually a rival Undertaker looking to buy out George. George tries to steal the guy's notebook and end up wrestling Greco-Roman style on the cobbles.
But not nude, sadly.
As Mrs. Pugh shows up.
Because that would be real Greco-Roman style
Yeah.
if they were both naked.
Grab him by the ears, wrestle him to the ground.
Naked.
Later, Mrs. Pugh and George talk about his dad and tradition and stuff. George explains the naked Greco-Roman wrestling thing that she just witnessed was due to a rival company, Rest Easy, trying to buy him out. Mrs. Pugh had received a call from them, which doesn't make an awful lot of sense. George says his dad watches over him in every service he does and guides him, which as far as we can tell, he does a shite job of it. But this is to convince Mrs. Pugh to give George the gig. And she does. Back home, George is lying about his manliness to Eileen when an irate Todd comes in. He's been rummaging in George's bin and has seen the offer that Rest Easy have made, $400,000 for that funeral business. George throws the offer in a different bin and says, Shuttleworth's is not for sale.
Right, yeah, because apparently this other place treats death like an assembly line sort of thing and doesn't have the personal service that Shuttleworth's provides.
Right, the personal
Like-
service that frequently
like
Goes
forgetting
wrong.
your loved one in a closet for over a year.
Running over the wreath by making Eileen the driver. Making Steve and Tim do Formula One racing with hearses through the streets of Weatherfield. Yeah. Still, this is the best storyline of the week.
It is.
On Friday, Todd is rushing to the Undertaker's, talking to Sean about the Pugh funeral that must go well. But when they get there, George is absolutely out of his tits.
He is. Hilariously. Well done, Tony Maudsley. He's just so hilarious.
Oh, pig's tits, says Todd and Sean as they save George from falling into bins. It turns out he's not drunk. He's fucked in Eileen's tramadol. Mrs. Pugh calls George's phone and Todd quickly dingies it. Todd, in between scenes, has tried other undertakers to outsource the Pugh funeral, but with no luck. Mrs. Pugh calls again and Todd answers. She wants to open the casket to put Mr. Pugh's trombone in it. And this time, she's just round the corner.
Right.
So Todd loads George and Sean into a hearse so that they're out of sight just as she arrives, saying that Sean has to go in because someone has to look after George or...
Right, make sure he doesn't get out of the car.
Right.
What a waste of a trombone.
Yeah.
We hear a lot of trombone music in this house.
Some would say, and when I say some, I say I would. Too much. Mrs. Pugh lets rip on Todd about how she expects perfection. Todd is struggling when a brassy woman appears and takes control of the situation. This is Glenda Shuttleworth, who knows Mrs. Pugh and says all the right things, instinctively knowing the right thing to say and gently knowing why a trombone in a coffin isn't a great idea for a cremation.
Yeah, very much not a great idea.
And maybe you'd get some peace by looking at the trombone in future and maybe
Passing it on.
passing it on to future generations.
Right.
And Mrs. Pugh's like, oh, this is a fantastic idea.
Right.
And at this point, I loved this woman.
Me too.
At this point,
Me too.
from the very first scene.
From the second she walked on screen, I
Right.
was like, I want to be best friends with her.
Right.
I want to hang out with that woman right there. She's my new best friend.
What is it? I don't know what. Is it the confidence? I don't know. She's a really good actor, right?
Yes.
First and foremost.
Yes.
But the way that she was written there was just perfect. She's immediately engaging. She immediately
Takes over without being an asshole about it.
Right.
Says the right things, does the right things, comforts Sean and Todd, you know.
Says the things that Todd should be saying.
Right.
Todd was gift of the gab, but
Right.
but she's just made him out to be a complete amateur.
Right. And in fairness to Todd, he's very flustered because his boss is stoned in the car.
Right. Womp womp. So they go in so she can get ready because she's not dressed for this at all.
No.
And nor does she seem to know that this was going on. She just had
No.
happened along.
Right.
But she's dressed up for the funeral and totally looks the part.
Absolutely. I love that hat.
Oh.
With the little veil.
Right.
Ah, so perfect. Did she have that in her luggage? Was that in a storage closet somewhere at Shuttleworth just in case she showed up?
Well, we learn that she's been on the cruises.
Right.
And I don't know if you take a funeral suit with you when you go on these sort of things. I don't know.
No.
But it makes sense if you're going away from home for a long time that you have a suit for every occasion.
I mean, it does-
What she's wearing seems to be very much what she would wear to a funeral. Although
Right.
she's got the cravat on and
Right,
stuff.
which is you know, part of the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, who knows? Lots of people die on cruises, so
Exactly,
you
right?
never know.
So she's totally the part, and she's promised a rendition of Ave Maria for free at the funeral, and she ropes Sean in to be an extra pair of hands, and he seems to be like us. He's in love with her already as well,
Right, yes.
and is completely compliant to
And
this.
calls Ave Maria the first power ballad.
Let's get the show on the road. And the funeral seems to have gone well. Sean and Todd are organising the spread in the Rovers. Afterwards, Todd calls their saviour Glenda the Good Witch, which makes Todd and Sean argue about who knows the most about the Wizard of Oz.
Which one is more of a friend of Dorothy than the other? And you know what? I think that may be one of the first times I've heard the term friend of Dorothy in a television show. Podcast, yes.
I've never heard it.
Personal conversations, yes.
Never
but
heard
never
it.
on a TV show.
I've just never heard it.
You've never heard gay men referred to as friends of Dorothy?
No, Do you know how much time I spend talking about the Wizard of Oz with gay men?
Not enough, apparently.
Apparently not. Then in comes a grieving homosexual who also knows lots about the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, and is hot.
The three of them chat about Wizard of Oz, and it seems the grieving homosexual has an eye for Sean, which means he has a secret and was probably a murdering bully with a heart condition that's been scooshing insulin down the sink after his tooth fell out.
Because he's not into Todd at all, and Todd is miffed.
Right. Glenda comes in and tells him off for flirting with the mourners. The Mrs. Pugh is thrilled with the way the funeral went. Todd credits Glenda with saving the day, which is news to no one who was there. George comes in and he says, "Am I still high?" when he clocks Glenda. That was hilarious.
That was great.
They hug and she reveals that she's here for the foreseeable after leaving the cruise ship, where she was a cabaret singer. Apparently there was a bit of a frisson that she had with somebody else's whatever. Right.
She was involved in a love triangle.
Right. Later, Glenda...
Which I totally believe.
Right. Glenda is regaling everyone with premium banter while George comes down from the tramadol. It turns out somehow he's managed to get his tooth fixed in between all this going on. Then Eileen comes in and Glenda gives her a hug, remarking that she smells nice, just like her gran used to do. Eileen takes it well, being described as smelling like a dead elderly woman. And Todd's like, "Isn't she fabulous?" And Eileen goes, yeah. So I think Eileen isn't taken to Glenda, initially anyway, quite as well as we have.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how fabulous Glenda is.
She's so fabulous.
Well done, Coronation Street. Well done, because you've introduced a remarkably entertaining character, albeit she's been in for like half an episode or whatever.
Right, and she's already my favourite.
Right. This is what is possible. You can introduce wonderful characters like this with wonderful actors playing them at ease.
Right. Having fun.
This looked like it was easy to do, and I'm sure it wasn't. But the fact that it looked easy to do, I think, goes to why she's so easy to engage with, and she's so easy to like. Her and George together.
Fabulous.
If that's the future of Coronation Street
yes,
for the foreseeable, yeah, I'm all about that.
Yeah, I'm all about the Shuttleworths. Give me more.
Yep.
Because we already love The Undertaker.
Yeah, and again, there was a character that they introduced really, really well.
Yeah.
Because he was great from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
Yeah.
He just looked like an Undertaker. I was going to say a Thundertaker.
Ooh.
One wonders what that would be. Probably dirty.
Yes.
He was introduced perfectly well, brilliantly.
Yes.
Again, played by a really good actor.
Absolutely.
With so much scope.
Talent, charisma.
Funny.
Right.
Can be serious. Apparently can do drunk.
Right.
Right.
Or stoned.
Or stoned. Or
high.
Trammied out of his tits.
Right. And really good at physical comedy.
Yeah.
And, I genuinely believe that you can tell when you're watching a television show or a movie that the actors are having fun and really enjoy working with one another.
Now, sometimes that's not a great sign, because I've seen plenty of Adam Sandler movies where he's there with his pals and they look like they're having a blast, and it is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Fair.
Right?
Fair. And there have been Adam Sandler movies where that has happened and they've been good, like Hustle.
That's just a for instance, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to focus or spend too much time
we're not going to
talking
spend
about
too much time on Adam Sandler because we'll be here all day. But I think that for the most part, if it's done in a way where it's not, I'm just going to get all my friends together and we're going to go to Hawaii and shoot a movie. Mm. And the reason why we're going is not to shoot the movie, but it's to have fun with my friends.
Yeah, not talking about Adam Sandler though.
I think it makes things better, and it puts you at ease to see them at ease, and it makes the acting seem more natural. Mm-hmm. I think that's why certain directors will use some of the same actors over and over again, because they have a rapport and they understand one another and they work really well together, and that comes across on screen. Jordan Peele and Daniel Kaluuya, for a more recent example of that sort of thing. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. Mm. I'm sure this happens in non-horror movies as well, but anyway.
Yeah, because he gets an amazing amount out of Bruce Campbell, who, let's face it, can't really act.
Oh, well, shut up.
He can't, but you wouldn't know it by watching his movies, really.
And he's fun to look at.
Yeah.
He was great in Burn Notice. Anyway, enough about Bruce Campbell, because we'd be here all day. So to see a scene like this where everybody is just top notch and seem at ease, because we've seen scenes with Todd and Sean where they have not been at ease, where it feels very awkward. And you don't get that here. Everybody is lovely to one another. Everybody is working well to handle this crisis in a way that's effective but also comedic. Everybody is at the top of their game in a scene like this. Including Sean.
Well, I was about to say this. This setup of the Undertaker being bad at his job has been done enough times already. Because as soon as it looked like that's what was going on, I'm tweeting. Right. When was the last time he was actually good at organising a funeral?
Well, we probably will never see that because that's not funny.
Right.
I'm sure he is the majority of the time. It's just we get to see them.
Where it's not funny when they continually fail. And this one is failing, but it's rescued, and it's rescued by her. And it is funny, but it's not trying to be overly funny, and it's not trying to be farcical. She takes control of the situation, and then we have this strange Wizard of Oz conversation that doesn't really seem to fit, or wouldn't have fit, if it hadn't been for Glenda setting the mood for this entire thread of the storyline.
And having a name similar to Glenda.
George has done wonders for Todd and for Todd's character.
Absolutely.
Since he came in. Todd is a different character.
We say it all the time. Right. Todd is better with The Undertaker than he is with Billy.
Yeah, I love Todd
Summer.
scenes that Billy isn't in.
Right, or Summer.
Right. Glenda, so far, has made me tolerate a Sean scene, or a number of Sean scenes. Sean, this week, has been the best I've seen Sean in I don't know how long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like going back to the homeless stuff.
Right.
And beyond that.
Right.
It's like, oh, see when he was blessing himself and talking about his Catholic upbringing and stuff. I thought that was great. Yeah. And I thought he was great in it.
Yes.
I thought that Anthony Cotton's getting something a little... he now has the foil in the shape of Glenda that Todd had with The Undertaker, it seems. So there's this, I don't know, lightning in a jar here with the two Shuttleworths together just bringing the best out of everyone that they're working with.
Yeah.
I'm all for this.
Absolutely.
This is wonderful. I'd
watch the spin-off show.
I don't want her to have a secret. I don't want her to be up to any shady stuff.
No.
And having phone calls with people that we don't know who it is at the end of episodes.
No.
Let's just keep this going and let's not question it too much. And just let it happen organically, because that seems to be how it's worked so far.
And we've loved it.
And yeah, this was wonderful.
So good. So good.
The homosexual Wizard of Oz fan. And I'm seeing lots of questions about whether he's a new love interest for Sean or for Todd. Yeah,
he was absolutely not interested in Todd at all.
So why is Sean getting another love interest right off the back of Frank the Wank?
Why not?
I'm just still worried or still confused about what the point of Frank was. What has changed? What has changed from his?
Well, I think Frank was more for The Undertaker than for Sean. I think Sean was the conduit to get The Undertaker back with someone from his past so that we learn something about the past of The Undertaker.
That he'd been bullied?
Yeah.
Because we'd learned nothing more.
No.
And The Undertaker learned nothing more about himself. Really, did he?
Well, he learned that still affected him, that was still a core memory for him, and that maybe it shouldn't be because he's an adult male now.
Maybe.
I don't think we ever got really any closure from it, but we did get The Undertaker at one point say sympathetic things about Frank, that, it must be tough to meet. So it seemed like he had come to a point where he could accept Frank and see Frank as a human being and not just a bully.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Good stuff.
But yeah, even that I loved because, Glenda comes over and she's like, so how did it go? Did you get his number? And all that other stuff, because now Glenda's from the Bronx. But
you garbage.
Don't ever do that again.
Come over here, kid. Come over here, kid.
And the fact that
You garbage.
it was funny because, the same thing happened with Frank, where Frank left without Sean giving him his number. And that happened again this time where Sean's like, oh no, I was being professional. And they both look at him like, what?
Right.
And then he runs off after the guy. We don't get to see what happens if he catches up with him or not.
We presume that he did.
Yeah, we're hoping he did. Because that guy was easy on the eyes. So I wouldn't mind having him around a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I think his introduction is going to get kind of glossed over a little bit because of the impact that Glenda had. But he was
Which is fine.
But he was pretty good as well.
Yeah. Everybody in those scenes was great.
Because when he started to join in and talking about his Wizard of Oz trivia,
Right.
I kind of was like the three of them had known each other for quite some time.
Right.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked that a lot. That was
Yeah.
great stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? I like that Eileen is not 100% taken with Glenda. I don't mind that.
Somebody has to be
Right.
against it, right?
And of
Otherwise,
course it
there's
has
no
to be
friction.
And of course it has to be the other woman, but
Right.
there are aspects of Glenda that remind me of Mary. And we know that it took Eileen a while to get used to Mary. Just the exuberance
Right.
and the talkativeness and everything, because that's not Eileen.
Yeah, and she didn't say that granny thing to be nasty.
No.
In fact, it was the opposite.
No, it was a compliment.
Just really badly worded.
Right.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Well, let's move on then
Oh, I guess.
to Homeless Daughterless Stu.
Oy, 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 oy.
On Wednesday at Speed Dial, Yasmin has been speaking to the Gazette and they want to do a feature on food waste and they want to speak to everyone at Speed Dial and take a team photo. Homeless Stu tries to weasel out of it, but Yasmin is having none of it. You're in. So the journalist loves the idea. I don't think this one's Suki, is it? The one on Friday's Suki.
I don't
Anyway,
remember.
she loves the idea that they've had and she sees another angle when she spots that Yasmin and Homeless Stu are an item.
Right. And at first, Dev tries to take credit for the whole thing, that it was his idea.
Dev's been trying to do this since it was first mentioned.
And the balls on that man, the absolute kiwi-shaped balls on that man to say in the room with the other people who called upon him and said, we have this idea, to say, oh yeah, it was all my idea.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the head of this.
Yeah. Good old Dave. So, Homeless Stu talks him through the idea how Yasmin helped him when he was down and out, and he's paying it forward, and the journalist thinks this is a fabulous, inspirational story. On Friday, it's launch day for the food thing at Speed Dial. They've built a website in a day to operate the new system, and now they're all trying
I
to
don't
get
think
the
it was
word
a
out.
day because they started this last week.
2 days then.
And it was Addie who did it, and he's a genius, and I will not hear a word against him.
Nina grabs some flyers, no one does anything else. Then Dev arrives and is pissed off about the article in the Gazette because it doesn't mention how great he is. It's all about homeless fucking Stu, going on about the way he's clawed his way back from the brink, and Dev looks like he's about to call someone a scumbag again, because he's already done that in another storyline. Later, Homeless Stu reads the article, and as predicted by Yasmin, he hates how it bums him up and how it doesn't mention Dev. Saddened and seemingly stressed, Stu nips off for a shite or to get some alone time.
Nina's still weird this week.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Not as weird as she was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but still kind of very much a fringe character at the moment.
Yasmin tracks Homeless Stu down to Nina's rolls and apologises for the article. She thinks maybe they should cool the relationship down, but he thinks that's the one thing that Journal Suki got right, was what the two of them being an item and being together and stuff. So Adi, the mastermind behind this website, is at Speed Dial, ready for the launch. He calls the whole thing entry level, but it actually sounds pretty great, and in real life it sounds pretty great.
Absolutely.
Businesses post details of their surpluses on the site when they become available.
Right.
So you just check the site and say, the Bistro's getting rid of some fish for cheap. Let's go to the Bistro and buy their fish.
Yes,
If this isn't a thing,
it should be a thing.
definitely should be a thing.
Sounds brilliant.
3, 2, 1, lift off, says Homeless Stu, who thinks it's a rocket for some reason. And then a face from the past walks in. This is Homeless Stu's ex-wife, Bridget's mum, and he wants Homeless Stu to stay the fuck away from them both. Yasmin goes over to see what's going on, and she's introduced to Lucy. Yasmin thought that Homeless Stu couldn't find Bridget that time he went looking for her, which I thought was a strange thing for Yasmin to say in front of this woman that she doesn't know.
Right.
Have this
Yeah.
conversation privately with Homeless Stu.
Yes.
Homeless Stu says a lot of things, says Lucy, and she tells Yasmin, because she also calls him Homeless Stu, and she tells Yasmin that she has no idea what she's messing with. Homeless Stu murdered a poor young girl called Charlie Walter.
Dum dum dum. She has 2 names.
that are first names and both traditionally male first names. Anyway. Lucy isn't here to rake up the past, she says after raking up the past.
Right.
But wants him to promise to leave well alone. Bridget wants nothing to do with him either. Stay away from us both, Homeless Stuart, she says. Stu agrees and Lucy leaves. Yasmin and Alia are shocked. Shocked, I tells you. I can explain, he says. And he admits the line about Bridget, but he never murdered that slag Charlie Walter. You have to believe me. Yasmin asks why should she when his ex-wife and daughter don't, and she demands that he leaves, which he does, without singing. So Yasmin and Alia are very quick to take the word of this complete stranger.
Well, Yasmin is very quick to take the word of this complete stranger. Alia seems more hesitant. I mean, she's shocked, but...
Shocked, I tells you.
We were shocked as well, because... What?
Yeah, this is just a huge what. Later, Yasmin is inconsolable. She made Stu leave before he had a chance to explain, and now she wants to speak more with Lucy. What?
A woman that she's just met.
She says, I didn't give Homeless Stu time to give his explanation, but rather than going and speaking to him, I want to speak to this woman again to get more juicy deets. And so she fucks off, leaving Alia and Naveed in the lurch once again to find out more from her. And she tracks down Lucy to the tram station. You can't drop a bombshell
How?
like that and not answer some questions. What kind of man is Homeless Stu, she begs. Well, he's homeless, says Lucy. And he was a changed man after leaving the Navy, a far more violent man. And he got a job at a restaurant and a waitress went missing, turning up in a woodland covered in Homeless Stu's DNA, and he confessed to killing her. He said they were having an affair and she had threatened to spill the beans. With all that exposition dropped, Lucy lapses into a coma and drifts away in the wind.
Now, I'm trying to think. Stu is like what? In his 60s?
Yeah, maybe late 50s, early 60s. Yeah.
Right. So he would have been in the Navy during relative peacetime. It would have been on a boat in relative peacetime. What would have happened in the Navy for him to have this sudden and complete change of personality? Because I can't think of anything that he would have gone through that would have caused any sort of like PTSD or anything.
I think what Lucy was trying to say was he had a hard time adjusting to life on Civvy Street again. And you hear that a lot.
That's true.
From the regimented lifestyle of being in the military to being...
That's true.
Right.
That's true. My dad was very militant about hospital corners.
There you go.
But, yeah, I mean, she was covered in his DNA.
From head to toe.
Yeah, that doesn't seem humanly possible.
Well, I don't think we're meant to think about this literally.
I don't...
Like he was a spooge factory.
Like, how big are... Once again, I am asking, how big are someone's balls on this show?
Well, maybe he just licked her from head to toe after killing her.
Or, like what? Did he...
Because that's better.
Did he, like, cut his nails over her body?
Mm-hmm. Left fabric.
Did he, like touch every inch of her body with his DNA, with his skin? Was he, like, rubbing his arms?
Some of his luscious hair.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe he left his guitar there as well. Who knows? Yasmin goes back to speed dial and explains what she learned from Lucy. Turns out that she got involved with another fucking rotter. Alia mentions that he's already moved out of the house. Good fucking riddance, says Yasmin. I never want to see him again. And that's how we end that for this week.
And he's also already been to prison and been released from prison.
So that's
how long do you get for prison for murdering someone in the United Kingdom?
Well, if you confess to it, you 31 years apparently is what he said the other week, right? That's what he said to Bridget. It's been 31 years or whatever.
So
he did this in his 30s.
Right.
Maybe.
How long was he in the Navy?
But 10 years maybe? I don't know. 19 to 29.
And then he was working in this bar for how long?
Not for very long, I don't think. It didn't sound like it.
And then how long was he homeless? Because we've spoken about how...
I think he's just recently homeless.
Because it seemed like he was quite experienced at being homeless. Mm-hmm. All his teeth are all right. And luscious hair. Yeah, the whole timeline of Stu's life
it needs some...
is weird.
It needs some clarification on it.
Yes.
I will agree.
And this whole story from beginning to end is weird about how they found this DNA and DNA is important, but it's not always a smoking gun.
No, because I don't think he killed her.
No. Well, we know he didn't kill her, right? We know this. We know Stu. Apparently better than Yasmin does. This is a guy that could have fully taken advantage of Kelly's situation.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
And did not. And said, I would absolutely not do that to you.
Yeah, he said to her, "You're not my type," which I think meant...
Could go many ways.
But what I think he meant was, I'm not a paedophile.
Right.
I think that's what he meant with that.
Yeah. So we've...
So he's covering for someone.
Right.
And I think he's covering for the ex-wife.
See, I was thinking he was covering for the daughter.
Well, but remember what he said to the daughter. Because he said to the daughter, I never touched that girl.
Right.
So why would he say that to his daughter if his
But
daughter
he says
was the one
that
who
to his
killed her?
wife, too.
Well, maybe he's covering for somebody else then. I think he's covering for someone. I don't think he killed her.
No.
And it's his confession. And do you know what? Homeless Stu is the sort of person that would do a long stretch in jail for someone to cover for them.
Absolutely.
I don't doubt that for a minute. And somebody who can live on the streets, I think, has that resolve within them. And again, from the military background,
right,
he's going back into something again that is very regimented, and maybe it is easier for him to handle if he's having such a hard time on the outside.
Right.
Maybe going to prison wasn't as much of a big deal as it would be for, I don't know, Craig, for example, right?
Can I tell you? Sometimes I think about it, and I'm like, I think I would love to be in prison. Not like the rapey bits and stuff, but being alone in a cell for long periods of time with a library at your beck and call, not having any responsibilities, really. I mean, you do get jobs in prison, but still. It's like when I was young and, dreamed of being a fire tower person, like a forest ranger who's alone in a fire tower who just watches for fires and then lives alone on the top of the tower with as many books as they can read and just alone in the forest sort of thing.
You're going to live in a lighthouse, aren't you?
I loved lockdown. Again, that's another one of my dreams, my fantasies, is to live in a lighthouse. I've always wanted to live in a lighthouse. Lighthouses are cool, and they're almost always haunted.
All that dead fish.
You can come. You can come in the lighthouse with me.
Well, thanks.
Just like that.
Maybe I don't want to.
No, you don't like lonely places. I love lonely places, and you hate them. Like when we were at Roosevelt National Park in the petrified forest there, and it seemed like we were the only people on the planet.
I don't like hearing my own heartbeat.
You got very spooked.
Mm.
Yeah, I love the sound of my own heartbeat. It means I'm alive.
Yeah, I just don't like it. Anyway, as fascinating as that wasn't. No, I can. You get your 3 squares a day, and somebody's taking care of you. And apart from the rapey bits, it's probably the rapey bits are going to be a very, very dark downside to it.
Right.
But
I kind of feel like if you keep to yourself and keep your head down.
Yeah, don't look at anybody.
Right. Don't try to befriend anyone. Just be quiet. I think you'd be fine. I'm probably way off on this.
I would imagine so. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it.
And a lighthouse would be much better. And I don't think I could ever do anything that would put me in prison.
Well, you could do what Homeless Stu did and just confess.
Yeah. But then that would keep an actual murderer on the streets.
It would, which I think is what he's done.
Right. You better hope that person doesn't murder again.
But Yasmin, though, you kind of touched on it, her trust levels for Homeless Stu are so low, and you can understand it because of Tim's dad and everything, but...
Right, but I thought we already went through that where...
A number of times. The fire, for example.
Right. She's the grown-up Summer.
The fire at Speed Dial, she was quick to believe that Homeless Stu was behind that. And there was something else fairly recently where she jumps to the conclusion...
Oh, he said something about vacuuming. Remember when he first moved in? That he runs a tight ship and, and he likes things to be spick and span.
I think there's been a few things that the two of them have clashed on and then made up about before they were officially going out with each other. So yeah, I'm not sure how many times Homeless Stu has to be or has to vindicate himself in her eyes, and it's getting to the point where I don't think it's worth it. I don't think she's ready to have a relationship with.
No, absolutely not. I don't think she is.
So this is just making the two of them miserable.
But the show doesn't care about that.
It doesn't.
It's a soap opera. People need to hook up. Oh, I was going to say it is. While this bombshell was quite shocking to us and pretty much everybody else who watches the show, saying, "Really?
He's a murderer."
Murder? And also, it doesn't really work in the timeline, but whatever. I do like the fact that we're learning more about Homeless Stu.
We're finally addressing this big grey,
because
expanse of
he's
time.
hinted at this dark past a number of times. We've gotten hints that, there's a reason why he was homeless and why his family doesn't talk to him.
Yeah, and why he is ending the week homeless once again.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Our next storyline, our penultimate storyline, I think, is
Woohoo.
there's something about Sinkhole Leo. On Wednesday,
He's got cum in his hair.
Sinkhole Leo, again, and Jenny are smooching in the bar, being lovely, which makes Daisy realise that Daniel isn't trying anymore. Oh, he's trying. Then we
Trying
learn
my patience.
Then we learn that Sinkhole Leo's mate is getting married, and Leo and Jenny have been invited to the Las Vegas ceremony. Jenny is very excited about this, but Leo seems less than keen. Later, Daniel is doing the crossword while Daisy continues to mope about his lack of drive and ambition. Then Leo comes in from work covered in cement. He's short-handed, and so he's had to get his hands dirty himself. Daniel offers to help, and over the laughs from Jenny and Daisy, Leo accepts the offer. And when Daniel comes back from his afternoon of manual labour, he's a broken man and has a few splotches of paint and cement on him, so we know he's been working really hard. Daisy thinks he's proved his point, but Daniel insists he'll be right as rain in the morning, and he's now out to prove to everyone that he's not just not a manual labour person. Because that's important to him now.
Didn't Daisy call him a pussy? Or did I imagine that? Or was that in something?
We all imagined that.
Or was that in something else I was watching yesterday? Yeah. I think it was in something else I was watching yesterday. But she does infer it.
No, she implies it. We infer it.
Sure.
On Friday, early doors, and weirdly Daniel is awake in the Rovers. Even more weird, he sees Leo try to sneak back, all dressed up in a suit. Leo is secretive about his whereabouts. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Later, Jenny's...
Which is really threatening because he's massive. Daniel is totty. It's the middle of the night. The lights are out. So there's like all these shadows playing on Leo's face. It genuinely looks like he wants to kill Daniel.
Why is Daniel up?
I think he was he still sore from all the manual labor?
What time were you putting this at?
What does Daniel say? It's like 1 or 2 a.m.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I got the impression it was far closer to like 4 or 5. I don't think he said.
No, I think he said it was like in the middle of the night.
He said the middle of the night, but...
Which would be like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Or midnight, which would be the middle of the night, quite literally.
I don't think I'd call midnight the middle of the night.
Right, but that's what midnight means.
Yeah, but I don't think people call it that.
No.
When they're talking about the middle of the night, I think they're talking more like 3 or something like that.
Well, that's basically morning.
4 or 5's maybe morning, but I think that's when it was. Anyway.
No, because it's still too dark to be 4 or 5. The sun would be coming up around 5.
I have real problems with this timeline, as you may have noticed.
Yes.
Jenny's made breakfast later. Oddly, she mentions how she's never seen Leo in a suit, because Daniel says, I don't know how you pack all that away and you still manage to get into your Savile Row suit. And he doesn't say nothing, and Jenny's like, oh, yeah, him in a suit, right.
She does that thing, what is it called? When you say 2 words that rhyme with 2 other words?
Cockney rhyming slang?
Yes. It's not my country. It's amazing that I know that. And that wasn't the only time that there was Cockney rhyming slang in this week's shows, which was weird. Wasn't it? Anyway,
Jenny says that she's never seen Leo in a tin flute, is what she says.
Yes.
Privately, Daniel grasses Leo up to Daisy about Leo's nocturnal suited secret. Daisy obviously jumps to the obvious conclusions here. Later in the Rovers, Jenny is chatting to Daisy about the Vegas trip and how she loves Leo, which apparently is news. Daisy was funny here because she'd walked out of the shot and she just kind of sticks her head back in it again
She said love.
when Jenny said love.
That was great.
Daisy's shocked and not so subtly tries to cool Jenny down, which she takes as jealousy about her and Daniel being miles behind in the love stakes.
Sure.
So Paul and Daniel are having lunch in the Rovers beer garden because Paul's been hired by Leo as well now.
Yes, because he's not getting as much work with Ed because Ed is still out of commission
Because he got electrocuted by a
Debbie's
radiator.
rape hotel.
When Paul reveals that Leo has handed in his notice at work and today was his last day, Paul then nips off for a shite, which allows Daisy to come out so Daniel can fill her in and then explain.
But not like that.
And then explain what he's just heard.
While she sits on his lap.
Yeah, nothing good will come from this, she says. So Jenny is getting ready for
And
a date.
also not the Leo thing.
Sure.
Sure.
Jenny is getting ready for a date with Leo, so Daisy has to burst her bubble by explaining what she's learned today. Leo is a liar. After the explanation, Jenny thinks that she's getting a dumping in her future, and so she goes to her date to find out. At the bistro, Leo has bought Jenny a massive bunch of flowers
Way too big.
that kind of obscure both their views and the light and
Right.
can be seen from space.
Yes.
Leo has ordered wine from Canada. Jenny can't hide her disappointment thinking that the massive flowers are to hide his secrets. He was planning to tell her tonight, he says. He has a new job in Canada.
Which, hence the Canadian wine that Nick had to dig in the basement for.
And she says, well, what about that being seen creeping in your suit in the middle of the night? And he claims it was a late night interview over a video chat. Mm-hmm. And he wants Jenny to come with him to Canada.
Oh, Canada. Canada's delightful. It's the most wonderful place on the planet.
Yeah.
They'll be happy in Canada.
He lives there, though, right? He lives at the Rovers now.
Yes.
Because his flatmates or something were moving on, or
Right,
there was
yeah.
that whole thing.
And also, he's sleeping with Jenny, so of course he lives there.
So, why did he sneak out for a video chat?
He didn't sneak out. He was, I think, he was not sneaking out. I think he was sneaking down. I think he was sitting in the Rovers in his suit with
Why is
his
he dressed in a
laptop.
suit?
Because it's an interview. You'd still want to dress nice for an interview, even if it's over Zoom, wouldn't you?
With a suit jacket and tie for an engineer's job?
This is Leo we're talking about. He's not the brightest bulb in the system here, and also tends to go above and beyond the call of duty. I mean, look at those flowers.
If it is 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever,
That would jive.
that would mean that he was being interviewed at 9 at night.
Would it?
Yes.
Well, it would depend upon which part of Canada.
Toronto, 5 hours, 9 o'clock.
Does he say Toronto?
Yes, he does. That's why I said it.
Oh, Toronto's great. Jenny would love it there. Can you imagine? She'd love it. The shopping, the being right there on the lake.
Go to the
the
library and
breezes.
see Christy P.
Yeah.
9 o'clock at night, though, is when he's getting interviewed for this engineer's job. I don't know that I'm buying this.
Or maybe it was closer to midnight. That would at least be like 7. And I could kind of see that. I could kind of see. I can kind of see why there may be an interview at 7, especially if it's from someone overseas.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying it. But
Oh, Jenny in Toronto would be great.
she's not going to go to Toronto, though.
I know, but she'd love it. And it would love her. She'd have a great life in Toronto.
Somebody mentioned on the Twitter
I would have a great life in
that,
Toronto.
It's not happening. You need to settle yourself down. That Jenny goes to Canada and it's Glenda that takes over running the Rovers. I don't think I want Glenda in a running the Rovers position just yet, because running the Rovers means you're more kind of bit party for a lot of the time in other people's storylines. However, it does mean that you're frequently seen.
Unless your husband drowns in the
That's
the
true.
sewers.
Right. And that can only happen so many times before people decide to, I don't know, put a grate on that hole. I don't know, there's something fishy about this. I don't think Jenny's going to go to Canada. And I don't think
I've seen
Daniel
it.
is going to has a future in manual labour. I
Well,
think that's
no.
what I'm taking out of this story.
I have seen a few people on Twitter, at Sally Ann Matthews saying you better not be going out of the show, and I haven't seen her respond to
Well,
any
she
of
can.
them.
Of course she can. It's not in her interest to do that.
No.
Our last storyline this morning is Grand Theft Bistro. On my...
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Not enough prostitutes in it, though.
Yeah, some. On Monday, Ryan is running over prostitutes in his car. While he has breakfast with Sinkhole Leo at the Rovers. Ryan's talking about his ambition to get back to Ibiza and his lack of funds that he plans to do something about right now.
Right now.
Leo leaves, which is handy because Ryan has given Debbie a call. And he goes round to the bistro and they chat through the plan as Debbie loads the safe with bundles and bundles of cash.
Bundles.
The plan is quite sophisticated. Pay attention to this, Helen, because there'll be questions about it later.
Okie dokie.
Rob the safe after closing time. Make it look like a robbery. Lie low. That's the plan. When they were talking about a plan, I didn't think it was something that they were going to put into action within 24 hours.
Right.
But seems that it is.
Yeah.
Excited, Ryan nips off for a tux. Later, Ronnie comes into the office to chat with Debbie. He's excited because, according to Ryan, Debbie's on the verge of getting Ed's compo together. Why is Ryan doing this?
Blabbing like this? It's ridiculous.
Debbie claims to have been rummaging down the back of the sofa and found a few grand kicking about, and this is enough to satisfy Ronnie. After, Debbie goes to see Kev at the garage so she can listen to him say how proud he is of her. Ray Weinstein may have been a crook, but he got what he deserved, says Kev. Debbie, on the other hand, is Businesswoman of the Year. Meanwhile, he hopes that Abby is now out of the business of doing stupid things. For fuck's sake, mutters Debbie, as she has a change of heart now, thanks to Kev.
Right, and Kev says something like, I hope at this point, she trusts me enough to come to me when she's having problems.
Right.
And Debbie is putting herself in Abby's place there,
she is.
Mentally.
Yes. Ryan,
Not physically,
meanwhile,
thank God.
is ignoring Debbie's advice of
This
calling
is not
Canny
Alabama.
until after the job by announcing to Jenny that he's selling his DJ gear as he'll be moving to Ibiza soon.
Again, Ryan, what are you doing? You don't tell people
Right.
what you're going to do with the money that you're going to rob here pretty soon, because people are going to put two and two together.
Yeah, that Ryan was talking about leaving all of a sudden, and all of a sudden started selling all these
All
stuff.
of this stuff.
Later, he goes into the bistro with his tux and is outraged when Debbie tells him that the job is off. Ryan protests that he sold his DJ gear, so the plan can't be off. Plus, his pals in Ibiza are expecting his $5,000 to buy into this pub that they're opening. She tells him that she's saving him from making a mistake. Ryan says that she needs the money as much as he does, and it's a victimless crime. Debbie calls it a stupid idea just as Leanne comes in, so everyone has to pretend that Ryan just suggested giving away free newts at the casino night, which Leanne actually thinks is a pretty decent idea, actually.
Right, because nuts make people salty.
Thirsty.
And yeah, nuts are salty, so they make people want to drink more.
Thirsty.
Yeah,
Casino. Thirsty. Casino night is up and running. Alia drops in to apologise to Ryan for snapping at him last week, but then gives him a hard time for drinking on the job, whatever he says, and he moans about not getting back to Ibiza after all. Alia tells him to make it happen if it's that fucking important to him. Meanwhile, James pops in to thank Debbie for getting that compo money organised, because James is a thing and is still alive.
Right.
Yeah, says Debbie, and she gets a text from Ryan asking to meet her in the kitchen. Ryan, why are you now texting Debbie?
Right. Yeah.
On the way, she bumps into Leanne, who announces that she's seen all the cash in the safe and she's going to take it to the bank at closing. Oh, well, pig's tits, that's that plan really done now. In the kitchen, a slightly drunk Ryan makes another play for sticking to the original plan, but the ship has sailed now thanks to Leanne. Ryan has another plan, just as brilliant as the first one. Fuse the lights, clear everyone out, and he'll rob the safe. This will also take care of the CCTV. And we're like, will it?
Will it?
Debbie, because that's the purge, isn't it? The lights go out and the CCTV all goes out. That's the purge. This isn't the purge.
Although, even in the Purge, some CCTV stays on, or else there would be no Purge movie.
Debbie is still against it, but when she goes back into the body of the bistro, Ryan flips the fuse box anyway. Debbie goes back to the kitchen, and when Leanne comes in, they pretend that the fuse box is fine and something more serious must have happened. So Leanne is charged with shepherding everyone out to the Rovers while they wait on a Sparky. Debbie tells Ryan to make sure that he's seen at the Rovers and then to sneak out. Foolproof.
Sparky meaning electrician.
Jenny shits herself when all of a sudden the pub is packed. Debbie announces that the drinks are on her to compensate for their inconvenience, and while everyone cheers, Ryan does his sneaking out. It was really nice to see everyone back in the pub. The pub was busy for the first time in forever.
Right, it was full.
And that's how they used to do the show, remember?
Yeah.
The pub would be packed, you'd be focused on one end of it while one storyline is getting advanced, then the camera would shift to like some of the middle booths,
right,
and that storyline would be advanced. Then you go to the puggy And that storyline would be advanced. They'd be done all in one kind of sweeping shot. They used to do this all the time.
I forgot to mention last week that they did that quite a lot last week.
They did it twice, I think, didn't they?
It was more than, it was like 3 or 4 times, but I really appreciated how, on the street.
People passing the street.
Yeah. And we would pass from one storyline to another, and it was so seamless and lovely.
Yeah.
This made me anxious, but that's okay. Right. I wasn't there.
Right. So Ryan heads to the bistro, robs the safe, and then makes it look like a robbery by smashing the handle off with a fire extinguisher. But on his way out, Leanne comes back in, so Ryan has to hide behind the bar, and this all feels very much like the time Michelle got battered trying to rob the place when she owed money back in 2017.
Oh, so this is a family thing then?
This has been done before, yeah.
By the same family?
Yeah. Leanne is on the phone to Nick, who must tell her to check the fuse box because that's what she does, and then the lights come back on. By this point, Ryan has crept under the entrance with his bag of money and manages to pretend that he's just come in. He suggests that Leanne goes to get the punters back while he cleans up, and she goes and does that, and tells Debbie that the fuse box was the problem after all. Debbie does a decent job of acting surprised and announces the casino night is back on, and as soon as they arrived, everyone deserts poor Jenny and the pub. Back at the bistro, Debbie and Ryan quietly congratulate themselves on getting the job done. Casino night over, Debbie, Ronnie and Leanne celebrate the success of the night. Leanne goes to take the takings and add them to the safe and then take them to the bank, but then she is shocked to find that they've been robbed.
What?
Debbie shouts on Ryan to quickly call the police while Ronnie investigates. Ryan gets on the phone and he and Debbie share a not so subtle wink that I was worried was going to get picked up by the CCTV because it was basically a honk kind of wink. It wasn't a wink, it was a honk wink.
Do people tend to honk when they wink?
Particularly geese.
Right.
On Wednesday, it's PC Tinker conducting the initial inquiries at the bistro. Due to the lack of signs of break-in, it looks like it's been an inside job. Ronnie listens to the theories quietly as he observes the goings-on. Debbie has a crime number and is on to the insurance pronto, and she already seems cagey as fuck even before she dingies a call from Ryan because Ryan is now calling Debbie. And from the Rovers, Ryan inexplicably is handling the bags of cash in his sports bag, leaving a thinly coded message for Debbie, letting her know that he wants this money picked up and gone.
Right, he says that the weights are too heavy for him that she lent him.
Right.
Right.
Because no one listening to that would think that something suspicious is going on here, right?
Right. That Debbie has weights.
Just as he finishes, PC Tinker wanders in and Ryan quickly has to hide the bag, and it's as suspicious as you imagine it would be.
Right, but it's PC Tinker, so it's okay.
Yeah. Ryan claims he has no knowledge of what went on. He saw nothing. He's clueless. Well, you got that right.
Yeah.
PC Tinker reveals that he thinks it has to be someone from the casino night, and he's not ruling out the fact that it's someone that they know. Later, Ryan hands over the cash to Debbie and the gunnel. He's bricking himself as Debbie repeats that she thought it was a bad idea to do this in the first place until Ryan forced her hand by cutting the power. What's done is done though. She still has his back and she's in it as much as he is. She tells him to sit tight, act normal. At the pub, Ryan has a wee chat with Alia about Yasmin's Gazette story from another storyline and asks him to come along later to be part of the interview. Yasmin and her want him to be there, so he agrees to that. And it was nice for him to get a little bit of normal stuff going on, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile, Debbie runs into Ed and they talk about the break-in. Debbie reveals how there's no CCTV of the incident since the power went out, and Ed is confused because he fitted the CCTV and he knows that it's on a different system. Ronnie perks up and calls the police to let them know, while Debbie quietly shits her breeks. So PC Tinker and the Scooby-Doo gang are all back at the bistro office, hunching over each other's hunching over each other as they watch the CCTV, and they see the robber keying in the code into the safe, and then they see that it's Ryan, just as Ryan walks in for his afternoon shift.
Yes, it was very clear.
Yep.
Incredibly clear.
Because thankfully he looked up straight at the camera. PC Tinker arrests him for Grand Theft Bistro. How could you, asks the Scooby-Doo gang, and Ryan says he was only trying to help. Debbie shakes her head to get him to shut up as he's led away. Ronnie is confused how Ryan had the code for the safe, and Debbie thinks it was just an oversight. But Ronnie doesn't let it go, and over the course of a couple of scenes, he pieces it all together with Debbie saying she was contemplating an insurance job the other day to pay for Ed's compensation. She says she was only joking, but Ronnie doesn't believe her and storms out. Debbie chases after him, and out on the street she admits it. She explains it was Ryan's idea, and she was forced to go along with it, and she begs him not to go to the police. And after 8 seconds of contemplation, he agrees to keep quiet, and then walks away, but he doesn't look happy.
No.
At the station, Ryan
Which is hilarious, because this is Ronnie we're talking about. Ronnie, who we know
it's totally up his street, right?
Right.
See, I was kind of hoping that the two of them would have been hatching a plan.
Right.
Because Ronnie's not adverse to bending the rules, I don't
No.
think. He has that kind of shady character about him that he's wheeling and a dealing, and
Right,
so long as
yeah.
you don't get caught, it's probably all right.
Right. Yeah. When he was first introduced, he was a wheeling and a dealing
Right,
with that former wife of his that we saw like 2 times.
right. At the station, Ryan has been questioned by the police, but he no comments a lot. Judging by the questions, he's banged to rights, except no one knows where the money is. At the Rovers, Jenny has found out and tells everyone she knew that he needed money, but he was one of the good guys, wasn't he? She's so let down. Then Nadia comes in and she can't believe it when she hears that Ryan has been arrested. Ryan? Later, Ryan uses his phone call to stand in the middle of the police station on the police's phone and shout at Debbie for fucking up about the CCTV and how she should have owned up to her part in it, and how if they hand back the money now, he'll get treated better. Debbie tells him to hold his horses. If she goes down, no one gets paid. They're in this together and he shouldn't panic and keep up the no comment line. So she gets back on the phone to the insurance company when Ronnie comes in to tell her that she's dumped and Ed will not be wanting dirty money for his compo. And then I didn't really understand this. Debbie rushes round to Ed's with a cheque for 15 grand and Aggie immediately bats it back, so Debbie seems to write a cheque for 30 grand now.
Yes.
And then she rushes out when Ronnie comes in. Ronnie telling Ed and Aggie that the two of them have broken up as she's too high maintenance. But, so how much money was in the safe? I don't understand this. I don't understand why Debbie suddenly has the money now to pay Ed. Where does that come from?
From the safe.
That was 30 grand?
It had to have been more than 30 grand because Ryan's supposed to get 5 grand of that. Let's remember.
She's written a cheque.
Which means she's deposited that money, which would be
Which
very suspicious.
Which definitely did not happen.
I don't know. I think she wrote the check for 15 grand because she has 15 grand in the bank.
Ah, she wrote the cheque for 15 grand because she's trying to lowball him and end up with more money, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know where she gets this money in her account to write this cheque all of a sudden, because she's just got off the phone with the insurance. There's no way that they've paid out just yet. So what gives?
I think she wants to get them paid before Ronnie has a chance to tell them the truth.
Definitely. But none of that answers my question.
Again, I think she had, she's rushing. She doesn't have 30 grand in the bank. She probably does have 15 grand. So she tries that first. And when that doesn't work, and Ed is being very sweet and sympathetic and saying, well, you did just get robbed. And Aggie's like, no way. We want the full amount.
It's such a badly thought out plan that this isn't going to save the hotels that apparently are all up to their neck in debt, that they're all based on loans against each other. There wasn't hundreds of thousands of pounds in that safe.
No.
So I'm not sure how this solves anybody's problem.
Well, it was, the robbery was more to pay off Ed than anything else, wasn't it? Just to get Aggie off her back. Because she wasn't going to solve all of her problems with what's in the safe.
Right.
That was never going to happen.
But presumably she has now written a cheque for more than 15 grand and Ed is now paid off
Yes.
from money that she didn't have but now does have in her bank account.
A lot of this, and I mentioned this to you last night, a lot of this storyline just has me really disappointed because when we were introduced to Debbie, and as we've known Debbie, the majority of the time we've known Debbie, she has seemed very savvy and very smart, even when she's doing bad things like working with Ray Weinstein. She's been savvy, she has been smart, she's been able to talk to people in business, she's been able to wheel and deal, she has been strong. And now all of a sudden, her world is falling apart. She doesn't seem to know how to run a business anymore. And yes, COVID and Ray Weinstein were a problem for her, but COVID was a problem for all of the businesses on the street. And yet it's only one of the female-run businesses that seems to be falling apart. And it's the one run by one of the most confident women on the street. And so I kind of hate it. I hate this personality change that they've given her where all of a sudden she's weak and flustered and going a little bit nuts and making dumb choices and also being in this much debt.
Well, I can understand her being in that debt. I didn't think she was coming across as all that flustered. I think I felt like she was taking control of it.
Well, it felt like that scene with Ed with the check. She seemed very flustered.
That was rushed, and like you said, I think it was rushed because of Ronnie, that she was trying to get that dealt with quickly. But my problem with that, I don't understand the mechanics of that deal or that scene. But I think otherwise from that, I think she's been fucked over by Ryan as well. That she wasn't bargaining for, because she seemed to have regained that composure when she spoke with Kev, and that's happened a couple of times when she's spoken to Kev, that Kev has been the kind of this beacon of high morals and doing the right thing.
Right.
And she was going to find a way.
Right.
And that was a Debbie way of dealing with it, was just finding a way. She's going to find a way to deal with this.
She just has this loose cannon called Ryan that she made the mistake of offering this deal in the first place.
Right.
Seemingly off the cuff and not very smartly, which again feels out of character for her to just
rushed for her. I would agree with you on that, but I still think that she's a strong-minded character. And when Kev called her businesswoman of the year, I think in terms of the street, there's maybe not a huge amount of competition, but I think he's probably onto something.
Besides Jenny and Carla,
is Jenny a businesswoman?
She owns the Rovers. She has a business.
She owns it. I don't know that it's massively successful, is it?
Well, it's successful enough to still be open, and everybody goes there, and she's able to pay her employees, and seems to have.
Well, that's kind of bare minimum, though, isn't it?
And doesn't need a partner to do so, because let's remember, Carla and Debbie both needed partners to keep their business running. I mean, I'm not quite sure about what exactly is the hierarchy at the factory anymore, because it's been confusing and a mess. And we're not even going to touch that right now.
Right.
But, I suppose there's Audrey. She does still technically own the barbershop, but she doesn't run it, and she's not in charge of the money or anything.
I think maybe it's because Debbie presents herself more as being the archetypal businesswoman, yeah, with the bag and the crooked arm and the clip walking and stuff. She walks the walk.
Right.
And she talks the talk.
Yes. Yeah, so I hate seeing her like this. It really kind of bums me out. But, even with Ryan being a loose cannon and everything, she could have very easily gone back to that fuse box, clicked it, and said, "Oh, sorry, folks."
Yeah.
It just tripped. And would have been fine, but she just kind of caves to Ryan about this whole thing when she's already told him, "No, we're not doing this anymore."
Yeah, so part of her still wanted to do it.
What was he going to do to her?
Oh, nothing. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And yet she acts like, "Oh no, he's pushing back, so I must do it now."
Later, Ryan is out on bail and he goes to Debbie. She promises him that she has a plan, that he'll get his money and she'll sort him out with a manager job when he gets out of jail. And Ryan tells her that she owes him big time. So I think the two of them are kind of realising that this is not going to end with anything other than Ryan going to jail for a number of years here. He heads down the street. Dev calls him a scumbag. Jenny has him black bagged from the Rovers, and Alia can't believe he wouldn't have come to her if he needed money. Ryan says that they're not close anymore, they haven't been in ages, and it's complicated. Upset, she rushes off, and he shouts that she's the only person that he cares about, and then he's left on his own, standing in the middle of the street. And on Friday, on the street, Nick demands Ryan gives him his money back. He shrugs, suspecting that his apology isn't going to help anything, and he doesn't have the money. It's all been a massive mistake. Debbie says that she believes him, but Nick wants his money back tomorrow, or he's going to the police to get Ryan charged with robbery again or something. Yeah, I didn't understand any of that. And what Nick was, he's like, "I'm going to get them to throw the book at you." And it's like, again. Do you understand? Your brother's been to jail. Don't you understand how this works? You've been to jail. Don't you understand how this works? Speak to Audrey about stealing from a business, why don't you? Right, yeah. It's get off that high horse of yours, Nicholas. Oh, Nick and his high horse again? Wasn't that a thing a couple of years ago? I think it might have been. It's always a thing. Ryan meets Debbie very tall. In the alleyway of doom, and we learn that the money was used to pay off Ed, and Debbie has an idea to get Ryan out of this and tells him to follow her lead. At the bistro, Debbie suspects to Nick and Leanne that maybe Ryan was coerced into robbing the bistro somehow, just planting seeds here. Nick doesn't care so long as he gets his money back. And later in the ginnel, Ryan meets Debbie, fresh from the police station, where apparently he's told him that heavies who were wearing Ray Weinstein jumpers threatened to kill him if he didn't get them some money from the bistro. And it seems even the Weatherfield cops weren't buying it, but Debbie thinks mentioning Ray's name will at least throw some doubt in there, and he'll be dealt with some more leniency. She tells him to act his little socks off when he next speaks to Nick.
And it
that
doesn't seem
is
like
how we end
anyone
this week's episodes.
is in their back gardens to overhear this conversation.
Well, normally I'd expect
Somebody to come out with their trash.
Fizz would be out there stopping Hope setting fires, and Gemma would be out there because 3 of the quads have escaped. But that hasn't happened.
No.
So that's how we end this week's episode. It feels like we've kind of talked about quite a chunk of that in the middle of it. But I don't see how Ryan gets out of not going to jail. Because whether he was coerced into it or not, he did it. And I don't think being coerced into it is enough of an excuse to not do some time, because at the end of the day, you were involved in this.
Right.
Rather than going to the police, you executed this robbery. So I don't see how he gets out of it. And I can see Debbie getting pulled into this because Ryan is the opposite of Homeless Stu in so many ways, although they both have nice hair. Ryan will fold like a cheap suit if enough pressure is put on him. And I think if they start saying, well, we know that you didn't do this on your own because where is the money?
Right.
I think Debbie's name's getting dropped into this.
Well, he's already blamed the Ray Weinstein heavies.
Yeah, but the police don't buy it.
Unless he does a runner like his brother.
Yeah, where is Ali? Where is Ali?
Where is Ali? He's in Hollywood making
Dr.
movies
Ali.
with The Rock.
Is he really?
Well, he did that one movie with The Rock.
Oh.
And like we said the other day, he's not really dating anyone on the street, although we really wanted him to and Ali had to get back together because they were adorable together. He has no family on the street. He's kind of just blowing in the wind here.
Yeah, I worry for his place. Although I can see him and Ali are getting back together again still.
I can too. In fact, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already because there was a point where we thought that it had happened and then it hadn't. And we're like, wait a second. They had this conversation where they both said they still loved one another a little bit. And it seemed like maybe we were moving in that direction. And then we didn't hear from them in a while. And when we don't hear from people in a while, we kind of just assume that something has happened. We assume that Nina and Asha are still together because when Nina leaves with those flyers, she says, Asha and I will put these up. You know?
Yeah. Well, we don't need to see that.
Because happy
that's
relationships.
very, very dull.
Happy relationships are dull. Except for...
Yeah, I like robbery scenes. I like those sort of storylines. I like it when they're executed well a little bit more.
This was not executed well.
This was not an Ocean's 11 here,
No.
or an Ocean's, or Debbie's 1. This wasn't that.
Even if they thought the CCTV was taken out, you'd still want to put something over your face just in case somebody walked in, wouldn't you?
And put gloves on.
Well,
and make
yeah,
it
I was
look
going to
like-
mention.
And make it look like someone that had actually broken in.
Right. Well, I
Because
mean...
even Tinker notices that there's no signs of breaking in.
Well, did they lock the door of the bistro? Because they needed to let the electrician in.
There's not even a smashed window.
And Leanne doesn't unlock the door when she comes back in. So it doesn't seem like they locked the doors. But yeah, and yes, this is Ryan we're talking about. He's no George Clooney when it comes to being a mastermind.
No, he's not even a Don Cheadle.
Well, nobody is Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle is awesome, and I will never hear a word against him. But I'm trying to think. Has Ryan ever been in trouble with the police?
Yeah, they thought he killed that Cormac guy. Remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And everybody kind of laughed at that too. Like, Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan would do
You
that.
really think that he did this intentionally? That guy died because Ryan is inept.
That was the week that was Coronation Street then. What
Yeah.
was your moment of the week? Like,
Do-
I need to ask.
Do you have to ask?
No, I don't. But which part of Glenda was it?
All of it.
For me, it's when she's like, okay, boys, let's get this job on the road. And
Yeah.
she's just in charge.
And takes over
Yeah.
and talks Mrs. Pugh out of melting the trombone into Mr. Pugh's skin.
Right. Yeah, a nice and easy one.
Yeah.
That's our
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
Boring moment of the week.
Daniel explaining that Tolstoy used to dig ditches.
That's it.
Boring moment of the week.
Well done, Daniel. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
All right, then. Let's wrap this one up.
If you've ever dug ditches with Tolstoy,
Wash your hands and then get in touch with us. We are thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com. And we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. You can shout me and Helen a coffee by heading to ko-fi.com/thetalkofthestreet. Check out the clicky section of voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode.
Thank
and
you.
we will be back next week with more
The Talk of the Street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.